One of these stands taller at the shoulder than the tallest player in the NBA. And it isn't a bison. We'll get to it. But first, you need to meet the rest. Because the world's wild cattle aren't the slow, gentle giants you picture chewing grass in a field. Some of them kill. Some of them vanished and clawed their way back. And one of them is so big it can stare down a tiger. Stick around. We're meeting every wild cattle on Earth, from the smallest dwarf buffalo to a giant heavier than a car. The deeper we go, the bigger they get. Let's start with the one nobody wants to meet. We start with the most feared of them all. In Africa, they call it the Black Death. The Cape buffalo doesn't hunt people. It doesn't have to. It just refuses to forgive. Picture 900 kilograms of muscle, about the weight of a small car, balanced on legs that can hit 35 miles an hour. You won't outrun it. You won't outmuscle it. And if you wound one and let it slip into the tall grass, it does something almost nothing else alive will do. It circles back. It waits. And it ambushes the thing that hurt it. South of the Sahara, these buffalo move in herds that behave like one nervous animal. Watch what happens when lions snatch a calf. The herd doesn't scatter, it turns. A wall of horns rolls back in, flinging grown lions into the air to drag that calf out alive. And those horns fuse across the skull into a solid shield of bone, a built-in helmet no predator can crack. We've tamed almost every animal on this list. Not this one. After thousands of years, the Cape buffalo has never been domesticated, and it kills more people than lions, leopards, and crocodiles. Patient, vengeful, and impossible to tame. But not every buffalo is a wall of muscle. This next one you could almost mistake for a deer. It barely clears your knee. Meet the Anoa, the smallest wild cattle on the entire planet. Stand one beside that Cape buffalo and it looks like a calf that never grew up. Maybe 70 centimeters at the shoulder, about the size of a large dog. But look at the face, and the buffalo in it is unmistakable. It lives alone, deep in the rainforests and swamps of Sulawesi, an island in Indonesia, and almost nobody ever sees one. It drifts through the undergrowth nibbling fallen fruit, leaves, and water plants, then melts back into the green at the first crack of a twig. Its horns are short and straight, swept flat along the neck like two daggers. Small, but sharp enough to keep you honest. And that shyness is exactly the trap. The forests it hides in are being cleared, and hunters take the ones that are left. The smallest wild cattle on Earth turns out to be one of the easiest to lose. Tiny, secretive, and slipping away. Shrink a wild ox down, and it vanishes. Paint one, and it becomes the most beautiful animal on this list. Picture a sleek, blue-black bull stepping into a forest clearing at first light, and on all four legs, bright white markings, like it walked through a bucket of paint and pulled on fresh socks. A clean white patch glows on its rump. This is the Banteng. It roams Southeast Asia, Java, Borneo, the forests of Indochina, grazing the edges where sunlight breaks through. And here's the odd part. The bulls and the cows barely look like the same animal. Bulls darken to that glossy blue-black. Cows stay a warm chestnut red. One species, two completely different coats. But beauty hasn't saved it. The wild Banteng is endangered, its numbers thinning as the forests shrink. It mattered enough that scientists made history with it, cloning a Banteng from frozen cells, one of the first endangered animals ever brought back that way. Graceful, white-stockinged, and almost gone. Beauty fades. This next story is about something that almost disappeared completely. So what does it actually take to come back from the edge of nothing? 200 years ago, tens of millions of American bison thundered across the Great Plains in herds so wide they could take days to pass a single spot. Then came the slaughter. By the late 1800s, that living ocean had been shot down to fewer than 1,000 animals. The largest land animal in North America was nearly erased in one human lifetime. But look at it standing there. A bull can weigh close to a ton, yet still sprint at 35 miles an hour and clear a fence taller than you are. And it has a trick almost nothing else does. When a blizzard hits, every other animal turns its back to the wind. The bison turns to face it, drops that enormous head, and walks straight into the storm. In deep snow, it swings its skull side to side like a plow, sweeping the drifts away to reach the frozen grass underneath. And somehow, it made it. From fewer than 1,000 survivors, the bison climbed back to hundreds of thousands, and in 2016, it was named the national mammal of the United States. Hunted, humbled, and hauled back from the edge. If this is already blowing your mind, take 1 second and hit subscribe, because we still haven't reached the biggest one. Number 8 is the giant I promised you at the very start, and it makes this bison look almost ordinary. But to get there, we have to talk about the animal wearing the most outrageous headgear in the entire family. Every animal so far has had horns. None of them come close to this. The wild water buffalo carries the largest horns of any living animal, a single sweeping arc that can stretch more than 5 feet from tip to tip, wider than you are tall. It actually has to tilt its head to slip through gaps in the reeds. And you already know this animal, even if you've never met the wild one. For thousands of years, people have leaned on the domesticated water buffalo to plow rice paddies, haul carts, and give the milk that becomes real mozzarella. More than 100 million of them work beside humans today. But watch one on a hot afternoon, and you'll catch its signature move, wallowing. It sinks into the mud until only its eyes and those huge horns show, caking itself in a cool gray armor that blocks both the sun and the biting flies. Here's the twist most people miss. All those millions are tame. The truly wild water buffalo, the original, is endangered, down to a few thousand clinging to river valleys in India and Nepal. Massive, mud-caked, and married to humankind. Those horns are record-breaking. But this next one came back from something far rarer. Actual extinction in the wild. We're climbing toward the biggest cattle on Earth. But first, a ghost. Because this next animal didn't just nearly vanish, it did. In 1927, the last wild European bison was shot, and the species blinked out of the wild completely. Gone, except for a few dozen survivors scattered across zoos and private parks. From that tiny handful, barely enough to fill a bus, conservationists rebuilt an entire species. Every wild European bison alive today, thousands of them back in the forests, traces its bloodline to those few animals. Up close, it's the heaviest land animal in Europe, a bull pushing toward a ton. But it isn't quite the bison you picture from the American plains. This one is a forest dweller, taller, lighter at the front, built to thread between trunks, stripping leaves and bark instead of grazing open grassland. Its stronghold is an ancient woodland on the border of Poland and Belarus, the last great primeval forest left on the continent. From a dozen founders in cages to wild herds again, one of the only times we've truly hauled a species back from extinction. Vanished, rebuilt, and roaming again. It survived the lowlands of Europe. This next one survives where almost nothing else can. Picture a shaggy black curtain of hair hanging so low it brushes the ground, swaying with every step through thin, freezing air. Under all that hair is the wild yak, and it lives higher than any other cattle on Earth. We're talking altitudes near 20,000 feet on the Tibetan Plateau, where the air holds about half the oxygen you're breathing right now. The kind of height that leaves trained climbers gasping, headachy, and dizzy. The yak just grazes through it like a quiet afternoon. A big bull is a mountain of muscle and fur, but its real superpower isn't size, it's that coat. The long outer hair hides a dense, woolly undercoat that traps body heat down to 40 below zero. It scrapes a living off frozen slopes, grasses, herbs, whatever lichen clings to the rock. Icy rivers don't stop it. Blizzards don't stop it. This is an animal built for a world that would kill almost everything else on this list within hours. But the wild yak is thinning out, hunted and pushed across its high home, even as its domestic cousin carries entire Tibetan communities on its back. Shaggy, sturdy, and built for the roof of the world. We've gone the highest, now we go the biggest. Every animal so far has been huge in its own way. This one dwarfs them all. Forget the bison, forget the buffalo. The largest, tallest wild cattle on the planet is the Gaur, and it stands up to 7 feet at the shoulder. Not at the head, at the shoulder. That's taller at the shoulder than the tallest player in the NBA stands flat-footed. A big bull can hit around 1.5 tons, close to twice the weight of the Cape buffalo we started with. Every pound packed into a body ridged with muscle down the spine. It moves through the forests of India and Southeast Asia, grazing and browsing, wearing the same crisp white stockings as the Banteng on otherwise jet-black legs. And here's what that size really buys it. The tiger is the only predator big enough to even try, and most of the time, even a tiger settles for a calf. A full-grown gaur is simply too much animal. Picture it, stepping out of the tree line at dusk. That ridge of muscle rising behind its shoulders like a wall, head low, breath fogging the cold air. Nothing in that forest moves toward it. Everything moves out of the way. Towering, muscled, and the true king of wild cattle. And that's the one I promised you at the very start, remember? One of these stands taller at the shoulder than the tallest player in the NBA. And it isn't a bison. It's the Gaur. 7 feet at the shoulder, 1.5 tons of muscle, standing in an Indian forest while a tiger thinks twice. Exactly what I said was coming. It just took meeting the other 7 to feel how big really gets. So, which one stuck with you? Drop its number in the comments. I've got a feeling a lot of you are going with number 8. But maybe the little Anoa won you over, or the bison that refused to disappear. Prove me wrong. And if there's a wild cattle I left off, tell me which one. I read every comment. 8 animals, 1 family. From a dwarf hiding in the forest to a giant that stares down tigers. Nature never built them to be fair. It built them to last. See you in the next one.